What's up, guys? Crypto Muser here with your daily news and analysis in the crypto markets. Now, today I want to start the video by talking about what's happening in Binance, or what's been happening in Binance the last couple of days. I don't know if you guys have been noticing on Twitter, or if any of you guys, my international audience, has been using Binance, but I used to use Binance years ago because I did trust them. They had over maybe 1,000 plus assets to trade with, so I use them, and I use KuCoin because I'm in the US. I used to use a VPN, but I think like 2 years ago they were like, if you don't get your assets off Binance, as an American citizen, they will basically take your assets, which obviously right away I took them off of Binance, but I still trust Binance as a exchange, and they are the biggest exchange by far in the world. So since all this FTX stuff went down, obviously they were insolvent before the so-called in quotations bank run on FTX. People were trying to point fingers at CZ Binance and the Binance exchange on maybe the same issues that FTX was having. But what's been happening the last couple days is basically, like I said, a bank run, but you can't really use bank run because, the reason why a bank, some people don't understand this, but banks don't have all the money. If everybody at your local bank or at Chase or whatever, if everybody went down to that bank, that branch or whatever in your town and tried to take out all their money at once, they wouldn't have the money to give you. Even if you went there and tried to take all your money out of your account at once, if you have a large amount, they wouldn't have it on hand. Because what banks usually do is they do fractional lending. They'll take your money, right? If you say you put $100 in your bank account, they'll take 99% of that money and lend it out. Even 100% actually now. And actually, that $100 will basically be lended out like 100 times down the line. So all these banks are over leveraged. So if there was an actual bank run on these banks, they wouldn't have the money to give you, right? So it's kind of funny that exchanges, real exchanges like I think Binance, they should have assets backed 1-to-1. So that's what happened with FTX. When everybody tried to pull out their assets at FTX, they didn't have the assets. They actually used that user money, and it wasn't fractional lending. They were just using it for their own. That's why this is a fraud case, because they're using user money for their own. Own investments, right? They were sending the money over to Alameda Capital and using it in the stock market. They're using it for leverage bets. They were using it for campaign donations, for asset buying in Bahamas, real estate, all types of, nonsense. But so what I'm trying to get at is that Binance, or what CZ has been trying to say the last couple of weeks during all this FTX nonsense, is that they are solvent. They have everything backed 1-to-1. They're the ones that try to push this whole reserve, what do you call it? I guess reserve auditing, to make sure that they have everything backed 1-to-1 and their liabilities are all set. So there's been a kind of, like I said, bank run on CZ on Binance, but from what I've been seeing, they've been taking it pretty well. And John Deaton even actually said here, I've seen numbers, and actually this is CZ Binance, this is a tweet on CZ Binance's tweet where he said, we saw some withdrawals today in the net of 1.14 billion. We have seen this before. Some days we have net withdrawals, some days we have net deposits, business as usual. And he actually says, I actually think this is a good idea to stress test withdrawals on centralized exchanges on a rotating bias or basis. And John Deaton's response was, I've seen numbers. This was after, because it was at 1.14 billion earlier yesterday, and then and I guess John Deaton said it maybe went higher than this by late last night, but he said that I've seen numbers at 3.5 billion in the last 24 to 48 hours. If CZ Binance handles this flawlessly, it will be the best thing for crypto in a long time, and I believe that thoroughly. And the funny thing about all this is that if Binance, I keep saying CZ, but just if Binance, because CZ is the owner or the CEO, what do you want to call it? But if Binance, the Binance exchange, gets through this flawlessly, like John Deaton says, that means they have mostly everything backed 1-to-1, which is a good sign. But also, what people don't understand is if exchanges do what they're supposed to do, is just custody assets and make their money off of their fees, they can make tons of money. I mean, anybody that uses an exchange out there knows that they make good amounts of money when you buy assets and when you sell assets, right? That's where they make the most money. The fees are kind of ridiculous. They actually kind of double dip on the fees. You usually buy that asset at a higher price, so they take a little fee when you buy it, and they also take a little fee. So they give you like a fee for just buying that asset, like a flat fee, but then they take a little percentage of that buy too, right? If the asset's at $1, they'll sell it for you to $1.10, and they'll slap on a 10% fee. So it's like they really double dip on the fees, and they make good money, right? If they're doing their job well, and they're actually custodying your assets, which is what they're the job of these exchanges are supposed to be, then they're making plenty of money by people trading and buying and selling assets on their exchange. So even the fact that they people took out 3.5 billion, maybe even 4 billion by now off their exchange, they made a good chunk of change off of those withdrawals. So I mean, it's not like I said, if Binance has everything backed 1-to-1, this is actually a good thing for them because they just made a ton of money off of that 3.5 billion. So anyway, moving on, CZ Binance also came out and said after this, FUD brought stress test, which is in turn helps to build the credibility for exchanges that passes the test. If you want to hold your own coins, feel free to use Trust Wallet. I think he has like a piece of Trust Wallet, so he's trying to kind of shill his own custody wallet there. But I use Trust Wallet too, so I do trust Wallet. But please keep your private keys safe. Otherwise, we are here, Binance. So basically, everything went pretty well. The FUD was basically that Binance was insolvent, or they weren't backed 1-to-1 like FTX. So like John Deaton was saying before, if they get through this unscathed, this is a great sign for Binance. It's a great sign for the future of centralized exchanges. I mean, a lot of people are out there against centralized exchanges, but the common person out there, even some people you common crypto investors out there, they don't like to use self custody because the seed phrase. If you lose your ledger, if you lose your seed phrase, you lose your money forever, right? So it's kind of a scary notion. I remember when I first got into crypto, that was a scary notion for me too. But now I've understood what self custody means, and I like to keep or at least most of my assets on a Ledger Nano or a Trust Wallet or some sort of self custody private keys to myself, because I just don't trust anybody, right? That's the whole point with crypto. Most people that are in crypto, they don't really trust the system, the centralized system itself. So they like to self-custody their own crypto. But I do understand that it could be a scary thing for most people, and that we do need centralized exchanges like Binance, like Coinbase, but they need to be highly regulated and insured, because if they somehow go insolvent, or if they somehow go bankrupt, they need to your money needs to be backed, right? Your money needs to be insured. So that's why we need people like PolySign, which is like a custody insurance provider, and companies like that in the future, because we can't have things like people like Sam Bankman-Fried, these fraudulent actors and bad actors in the space. So like I said, this has been a good thing for Binance. Even Alex Velitis, can't even pronounce the name, but it's very important that people understand the following. This is what I was trying to say earlier. There's no such thing as a bank run on Binance, since they are not a bank. Also, if a spike in withdrawal drives an exchange into insolvency, it means they broke the terms of service and didn't hold assets 1-to-1. Exactly what I was saying before. They're making tons of money off those withdrawals. So if they're holding their assets 1-to-1, there's no such thing as a bank run, right? If they have every assets 1-to-1, then you can take your assets off whenever you want, right? And like I said, Binance probably made a good chunk of change off of those withdrawals. So next, let me see. Oh yeah, Moon Lambo has changed his name to Moon Family Sedan, which I thought was hilarious. It makes all us feel the same when we look at our portfolios in the last couple of months. Um, I love that. Moon Lambo changed to Moon Family Sedan. Looks like a bank run. This bank run name. Looks like a bank run on Binance has occurred, but unlike FTX, I see no evidence that Binance is insolvent. If I'm missing anything, let me know. Just started to get caught up with what's going on today. But the reason why I want to put this up there is just if you guys wanted to, this article by the Crypto Basic, largest effort, 39,000 plus Bitcoin leaves Binance in the last 24 hours. So basically there was like I put in quotations, a bank run on Binance, but they did pass the stress test. So this is a huge sign, like I said, for crypto. But let's get into the real news I want to talk about here. So I know this first I had a quick joke. I forgot about this. Good old Jim Cramer. We love Jim Cramer, don't we? I love the account that, what is the inverse Jim Cramer? They just do the opposite of what Jim Cramer says. And people make like tons of money. I love that so much. Anyway, he came out yesterday and said, Jim Cramer says he feels reassured by Binance. And I was like, oh no, please no. Like, if Jim Cramer says it, then it's probably the opposite, right? But like I was saying before, I think Binance is in the clear, but it was just funny that Jim Cramer came and said this because people were like, maybe I should worry about Binance, right? If Jim Cramer's saying they're okay. Jim Cramer, we love him, right? We love Jim Cramer, right? You're right. Anyway, let's get into the real news. Like I said, there was a hearing yesterday in Congress. Obviously, we know that Sam Bankman-Fried was not at the hearing because he did get arrested yesterday. But we had the current CEO of FTX there, who was just basically a punching bag for these congressmen. But he also gave some good information and some solid facts to us that we didn't know before. Another thing was that FTX was using QuickBooks for their accounting, which is beyond me. That these so-called MIT mathematician experts and geniuses, right, are using QuickBooks for their accounting. I mean, that should be the red flag right there. Like, QuickBooks, really? Like, billions of dollars, like $36 billion company or exchange or whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't call it exchange. It's a fraudulent company, but they were using QuickBooks. That just shows you how much of a sham this so-called company was. So anyway, let's get into what happened yesterday. So first of all, I want to give the good. So obviously we know that there's some congressmen that are, or congresswomen or congressmen that are well educated in crypto, or have been getting more well educated in crypto, and you hear them speak, you can understand that they've been educating themselves, right? And you hear some congressmen and congresswomen that you can tell that have not even taken the time to look up what blockchain means, right? They just sound like it's like painful to hear them speak because they just make no sense. They talk about how only terrorists use crypto and that it's only people trying to hide their money, which makes no sense because blockchain is 100% transparent, you idiots. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into Congress of Ted Budd. I feel like, where is he a congressman from? He is the 13th District of North Carolina. I just want to, I know a lot of people are on Twitter and maybe didn't get to see these hearings yesterday, so I want to show you a couple clips just so people, get caught up on what happened yesterday. So first of all, I'll just read the tweet and then I'll show you guys the clip. Bear with me because I don't know where my volume is for my desktop, so I'll probably have to adjust the volume when I start the video. But Congressman Ted Budd says, what happened at FTX, which is so true, what happened at FTX was fraud, plain and simple. Sam Bankman-Fried should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. In order to protect consumers and encourage U.S. innovation, Congress should finally take a lead and establish clear rules for crypto. Applause, applause, applause. I couldn't have said it better. So I really don't know much about Ted Budd, but those words, we need more of that out of Congress, right? So anyway, let's get into what Ted Budd said here. I thought it was great. Bear with me, like I said. We'll see where the volume's at here.
My time in Congress.
Here we go.
So here's really what I'm getting at. So I've been a longtime supporter of both blockchain technology and the digital asset industry. And I view them as uniquely American innovations that have the potential to help and revolutionize financial services. But what happened at FTX was fraud on a massive scale, not unlike other scams throughout our country's history. The head of FTX should be dealt with in the same way that other disgraced leaders of Enron, like prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So what I want to protect is innovation, and we want to see it flourish right here on our shores under proper regulatory oversight. It's clear now more than ever that regulatory ambiguity coupled with the practice of regulation by enforcement used by agencies like the SEC, it's led to companies moving offshore, where they're often out of reach of proper American oversight, which puts all investors at risk of another FTX type scam. So what we need is for Congress to take the lead and establish clear rules for this industry. From the very beginning of my time in Congress, I've introduced and supported countless bills that would do just that. And it's my hope that we can finally work together to establish these rules to protect U.S. investors in the future of American innovation. Thank you. I yield back.
I mean, what a great statement for Ted Budd there. Is it Ted Budd? Ted Budd. It's exactly, I mean, us in crypto have been calling this forever now. Like, we don't want this thing to be the Wild West, right? We want clear-cut regulation that is good for innovation in this country. That's all we've been asking for, and we've been getting the SEC that just wants to attack non-fraudulent actors like Ripple and Library and, like, you know, these crazy stunts going after Kim Kardashian, all this BS. I mean, the fact that FTX was meeting with the SEC, the fact that Luna and Three Arrows Capital and all these, you know, fraudulent actors have been allowed to do what they want, and FTX, I mean, and the SEC does nothing about it. I mean, this is why we need real regulation, not this regulation by enforcement that has been hurting innovation in this country. So, like I said, round of applause for Ted Budd on this statement, but I'm just warning you now, I'm going to give you a couple more good ones, but we have some, oh my God, wait till you hear what, I don't know if you guys know who Brad Sherman is, but wait till you hear what he said. But first off, let's see my all-star congressman, Tom Emmer. Listen to this guy speak, because this is the type of, I mean, he's been well-educated. He's been on a podcast for in the crypto community. He's obviously done his research and educated himself on what blockchain is and what this crypto industry can do for the financial industry in this country and in the world. So listen to how he speaks, and just after that, I'll show you how these other guys speak. And it goes, it's like black and white on how these guys have educated themselves. And we need more and more people more in Congress that will do this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I love Litbit said this. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Tom Emmer, and I believe he is from Colorado, or Minnesota. And hold up.
Thank you. And Mr. Ray, I appreciate you mentioning your concerns in the beginning of my questioning about the concentration of power in a small group of individuals with no oversight. That is the exact problem that open and permissionless technology like crypto and blockchain solve. It solves for the problems of centralization. You stated in your testimony that you've never seen such a, quote, utter failure of corporate controls at every level of an organization, from the lack of financial statements to a complete failure of any internal controls or governance whatsoever, close quote. FTX had disastrous or even non-existent systems for accounting, audit, cash management, cybersecurity, human resources, risk management, and other unacceptable management practices that currently make your job to uncover the facts quite difficult. Fortunately, the immutable characteristics of public blockchains that some people would care not to understand in this committee allowed the crypto community to reveal Sam Bankman-Fried's fraud, and the on-chain public record will assist law enforcement moving forward. I encourage my colleagues to understand Sam Bankman-Fried's con for what it is: a failure of centralization, a failure of business ethics, and a crime. It is not a failure of technology. I've worked across the aisle since I came to Congress, so the future of crypto reflects American values, the same way the internet does today. For the most engaged members of Congress on crypto policy, the FTX collapse reminds us of why we care so deeply about this technology. Decentralization is the point. Thank you, and I yield back.
I mean, wow, right? That sounds like a man that knows what he's talking about, right? He understands what crypto is, what blockchain is, and he understands what decentralization is. And he understands this was a failure of centralization, right? This centralized exchange, FTX, was custodying other people's assets and using backdoors in the software system at FTX and using their assets, and even printed, like, I think they were creating fake Bitcoin on their exchange. So people thought, on your, if people use exchanges out there, you can see when you have in your portfolio what you have a certain amount of Bitcoin or whatever. You think you have those assets, right? But the centralized exchanges custody those assets. So you're not really, you have those, it says you have those, but you like to think that they're there, right? But what FTX was doing was using the software to make you think you had those assets there, but they actually had fake Bitcoin there, fake assets. And they were using a backdoor in the software and taking those assets, selling them for US dollars, and then sending them over to Alameda Capital, or even sending them over to Alameda Capital and then selling it, and then using that money for, like I said, leverage bets on the stock market and buying real estate and campaign donations. That's fraudulent. That's fraud. That's a criminal offense, right? That's why Tom Emmer says this isn't a technology issue. This is a fraud and criminal issue, right? So people out there trying to say this is why crypto is so bad. No, this is why we need regulation. This is why we need people to do the SEC and the CFTC to do their job, right? The fact that they let this happen shows me, it doesn't tell me that we need any help with crypto. It means we need help in the regulation, and Congress needs to pass laws that will stop this from happening. It's as basic as that, right? So, like I said, Tom Emmer, all-star for the crypto community. But listen to this. So this is when he attacks. He gets at Gary Gensler in the SEC, and this is, I love to hear this stuff.
Yeah, I can get back to you on the staff on that.
We know that Chair Gensler had more meetings with FTX than anyone else in the crypto industry. We understand that what was being negotiated was a framework for digital asset exchange registration and token registration with the SEC that would benefit both parties. It would expand the SEC's jurisdiction in exchange for the SEC's preferential treatment of FTX over other industry participants. We understand there was a lot of activity to move this idea forward, including the circulation of draft short-form disclosures that would enable filers to get tokens listed on this newly formed bespoke exchange. Mr. Ray, I know you're handicapped with the information you currently have obtained, but Chair Gensler refuses to answer our questions or testify before this committee. Will you commit to sharing with this committee any internal documents you come across regarding communication between FTX and Mr. Gensler or others at the SEC?
We'll fully cooperate, with the committee and the regulatory authorities with respect to our investigation.
Again, specifically, I just want copies that this committee will want copies of those communications to the extent they exist.
We can certainly work with your staff to get you what you need.
Tom Emmer, man, I love this guy. I know Gary Gensler will probably, they're going to try to get him out in front of Congress soon enough, right, in the next couple months, hopefully. You better believe they better at this point, right? But the fact that Gary Gensler and the SEC were having meetings with FTX and trying to make framework to give the SEC more power in FTX, preferential treatment, so they could, run their exchange and basically try to kick out Binance and Coinbase. It doesn't get, that's called corrupt, right? That's called, that's plain and simple corruptness within our government. And if that was really going on, then we need to get to the bottom of that. And if you've been in the XRP community and people that have been following this SEC case against Ripple, the stuff we've uncovered about the SEC, you better believe they're corrupt. You better believe that they could care less about investors. They've been hurting investors since day one, right? So Tom Emmer, round of applause for you, my friend, again, for going after the SEC. And we need to know more information on what went on in these meetings, what was talked about, what they were trying to do with the FTX and SEC meetings. And like I said, we got to get to the bottom of all that. But it's just good to see that Tom Emmer is trying to do it, right? And Tom Emmer is going to be I believe he's going to be the whip, the head of the banking committee, and the Republicans have the House now, so they have, they can, bring up hearings on anything they want, after, I think, January 23rd or so. So it could be a tough road ahead for Gary Gensler, and we hope so. Moving on. So who is this now? Oh, this was, I forget the name of this guy, but hold on here. Well, I guess we'll find out, but I tweeted this out. These idiots really, this is funny. These idiots should really try and do a little research before making themselves look so foolish. Crypto is 100% transparent. He must at least have some interns that could do some research for him, right? I mean, like I said, listen to this guy speak, and he obviously knows nothing about blockchain and crypto. And then later on, I find out that he's one of the biggest, takes some of the biggest donations from banks and institutions. So obviously, it makes all sense after you hear what he said here. But listen up.
What government entity is responsible for this fiasco?
That's not for me to say.
No, it is for you to say. You're right there, and I'm asking you. If you had to opine, that's why you're there in the hot seat. Who is it? Should the SEC have been more aggressive, even though we had a lot of our friends on the other side saying they shouldn't have been? Should the SEC have been more aggressive?
You know, I'm not experienced, and I'm not a regulatory lawyer. I'm not here to express views about who should regulate it. I've said and very clearly that we need transparency. Customers need to have segregated accounts. They need to have ownership. It's their money, it's assets. It's really no different than a bank. You'd expect the same level of scrutiny of any funds that you have on deposit with someone else.
Good answer.
That is a minimum.
I agree with everything you've said, but at the same time, I have to say that the product that they give is a hybrid product, is it not?
Well, certainly it's a currency. It's an alternative currency, yes.
So then who should regulate it?
I don't have an opinion on that.
You don't?
Mr. Carson, no.
Okay. Well, that's the whole problem, I think. I don't get the point of cryptocurrency to begin
from
with.
California.
Other than, if you're a terrorist or someone that wants to hide money, and then I get the point. But other than that, I don't get the point myself. But if we are going to have it, we have to regulate it. Someone has to be in charge. We have to make sure that we don't continue to defraud the American people. And that's where the government comes in. Somebody's got to take charge of this. I think it's the SEC. I've always thought it was the SEC. They had a lot of pushback from my friends on the other side. I didn't hear them quite today, pushing back as they normally do. I'd love to see that. But again, someone has to regulate this if it's going to exist. Don't you agree?
I certainly think there has to be more controls in this sector. Who should regulate it? I defer to this committee.
That, Madam Chair, I yield my time back.
I love that this guy's attacking this guy. He's dude, it's your job in Congress to decide who regulates this. Why are you asking this guy that you have, donating his time to give you these answers? But you obviously know he has no answer for that. So I don't know what you were trying to do there. And the funny thing was, I agree with him at the end there saying that we need someone to step up and regulate this. But you just said that you don't really get this. I believe only terrorists really use crypto. It's like, terrorists? It's 100% transparent, you idiot. My God, it's painful hearing these guys. But, yes, it's funny that you're asking this guy who should regulate crypto. You're in Congress. It's up to you to decide. So do your friggin' job, buddy. Anyway, moving on to the next guy. So this is where it gets really good. Honestly, I didn't even... You'll be hearing this more than me because I listened to the first 30 seconds and you couldn't even hear this guy talk. But I'll let you be the judge or let you listen to the whole thing. And this guy, this is the Mongoose coin guy. I don't know if you guys remember a couple months ago or maybe last year when they had some crypto industry people in there and he was trying to he just made himself look so foolish in front of Congress and he does it again. This guy, Congressman Brad Sherman from California, I believe too. Yep, California. He just obviously doesn't even care to try to educate himself at all on crypto because he is a huge bank guy. I think he's number 1 or number 2 in Congress that gets money from banks and institutions. And you can, obviously, but just, how long is this? 5 minutes? I don't think I could do the 5 minutes, but I'll let you guys in on the first couple minutes and you see where it goes.
For 5 years, I've been trying to ban American investments in crypto.
And he's been trying to ban crypto. How do you, buddy, that ship has sailed, buddy. This train has left the station a long time ago. You can't ban $1 billion industry. I mean, I'm sorry, $1 trillion industry is at $1.3 trillion. Oh my God. Anyway, I know it's annoying, guys, but just so you know what we have in Congress, just so you know that some of these people are dealing with in Congress. Like, I'm sure even his own constituent or his own people and other people in Congress try having a conversation with this guy about some real issues. Oh my God! Right, here we go. Sorry.
For 5 years, I've been trying to ban American investments in crypto. I'm the only member of the House to get an F from the only crypto promoting organization that rates members of Congress.
For good reason.
My fear is that we'll view Sam Bankman-Fried as just one big snake in a crypto Garden of Eden. The fact is, crypto is a garden of snakes. Now, from the outside, crypto just looks like a non-fungible token.
Makes no sense.
An electronic pet rock for the 21st century. Something that might be good to invest in, even though it has no apparent value, because you might get somebody else to buy it from you for even more. But in reality, the hope of crypto is to be a currency, to compete with the US dollar, and to announce its advantage over the US dollar in that competition. It puts the advantage right in the name.
Hold on. No, it's not trying to battle with the US dollar. It's trying to, I mean, yeah, I know some Bitcoin maxis say we're trying to replace the US dollar, but the US dollar is going to go down at some point. You know that. You've been fighting for a digital dollar. You know that the US dollar is we're in 36 trillion now in debt? You can't just keep printing a currency and expect it to be the world reserve currency forever. And he knows that better than anybody. But the fact that he says, just like the first minute of this, he was false on like 3 different statements, just shows you that he has no idea what he's talking about. A non-fungible token, an NFT, is not just crypto. That's one aspect of the crypto industry, but that's not what all crypto is. What crypto's pet rocks, really? And that speculation, that some assets are based on speculation, is some type of new concept? What are you talking about, buddy?
Crypto. Hidden currency. Well, is there a big market for that? Is there a big advantage that crypto has over the US dollar if it actually became a currency, which it's not?
Yes, it does have a huge advantage over the US dollar. It's first of all decentralized, so you don't have to have a bank custody your assets. You can use I said before, you can use centralized exchanges like a bank, but you can also custody your own assets and not have to have a custodian like a bank that's just going to use your money to loan it out and do basically what FTX is and make bad bets with it. The only difference between FTX and banks is that banks get bailed out by us taxpayers, and obviously FTX did not. Oh,
not yet. Well, there are drug dealers, human traffickers, sanctions evaders who will find that to be a good feature. And as Sam Bankman-Fried would tell you, there's a hell of a market for bankruptcy court evasion. But the big market is tax evasion. And I know there are some on the other side.
No, you can't. It's 100% transparent, you idiot. The only reason why there's tax evasion in crypto is because you guys can't put together tax laws that actually make sense. When I did my taxes a couple months ago, you tax crypto to crypto. When I put money from one crypto into another crypto, I'm not making any money off of that, right? I haven't taken it out in US dollars. I haven't taken it out into a stable coin, but you tax that. That's unrealized gains. You don't do that in the stock market. You tried to do that a year ago or so, and it got basically shunned out of Congress. But you can do that on crypto. I mean, the reason why people try to hide their money, or not hide their money, but try not to pay as much money in taxes for crypto is because you don't have the right tax laws. Oh, do some research.
Side who cheer every time a billionaire escapes taxes.
And I'm sorry, I keep stopping. This is as much as I can give this guy, but like billionaires don't evade taxes already with the tax laws you have in the books already. What are you talking about? It's everyday people that get screwed with tax laws. The tax laws you have, billionaires and millionaires find the loopholes. They don't pay. They pay obviously a good share of taxes, but they also dodge a fair share too. Like Trump used to say, I use the system that you guys set up for me. So don't hate on me for using the system that you guys set up. Change the system.
The other announced purpose of crypto is to compete with the U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency, thereby
only Bitcoin
enriching the corporate billionaire bros and taking thousands of dollars of advantage away from every American family.
Wait, what?
Because we benefit from being a reserve currency. Now, Sam Bankman-Fried, or should I say inmate 14372, had one purpose in all of his efforts here in Congress. Was a well-known figure, only one wearing shorts. His one purpose was to keep the SEC out of crypto, to provide a patina of regulation, baby regulation from the CFTC. And I'll have one comment from my colleagues. Don't trash Sam Bankman-Fried and then pass his bill. I fear that could happen because Sam was not the only crypto bro with PACs and lobbyists, and there is no PAC or lobbyist here to work for efficient tax enforcement or sanctions enforcement. Now, I've heard from some on the other side criticizing the SEC. In July in this room, I criticized the head of the SEC for not going, the head of enforcement of the SEC for not going after crypto exchanges. But the fact is that without objection, I'd like to put on the record a letter signed by 19 Republican members designed to push back on the SEC, a brushback pitch, if you're familiar with baseball.
Without objection, such is the order.
Thank you. Attacking the SEC for paying attention to, and quote, the purported risks of digital assets. And I'd like to put on the record, without objection, comments from 8 members made in this room.
Yeah, enough of that. But yeah, the 19 Republicans, yes, they put out a letter against the SEC for using the tactics that they've been using. Regulation by enforcement they're trying to go after, because that's no way to regulate any asset class. You can't just not have any rules and regulations in place and then just say, go about business, and then if we won't give you the rules of the game, but when we think that you break the laws or break the rules, we'll come after you. That's no way to regulate an industry. That's how you set up failure in an industry. That's how you kill innovation in this country. That's why innovation is going overseas, to Dubai, to Switzerland, to the UK, to the UAE, to Japan, China. This is why we need real regulation in this country, and it's guys like Brad Sherman here working on behalf of the banks, right? Not trying to let this flourish in this country. And that's why if we don't stop people like this in this country, and we don't stop people like Gary Gensler in the SEC, this innovation will go overseas, like it already has. But if you're going after one of the biggest companies, American companies in crypto, Ripple is, obviously you're trying to push innovation elsewhere, and that is a terrible thing for our future as Americans. So I had enough of that. You get where that's going anyway. So I'll end with this. Stuart Alderati, Ripple's top lawyer, what do they call him? He is the head general counsel at Ripple. Over 35 years legal experience and expertise in regulatory affairs with complex litigation. He said, to be clear, and this is something that people should get, what the SEC is trying to do with FTX. The SEC's tag-along complaint against SBF seeks to recover funds for FTX's sophisticated equity investors, not the consumers who have been left holding the bag in bankruptcy court. So yeah, then when they attacked FTX with this tag-along complaint, this civil complaint against, which will not, after, obviously we have to go through all the criminal complaints and criminal case against SBF and FTX, but, SEC will get their time in court, way down the line in their civil case, but they're not looking for money for the everyday investor that they're supposed to protect, right? You think that the SEC is there to protect ordinary investors? No, they're there to protect sophisticated equity investors, right? They're there to protect the accredited investors, the rich people, right? But everyday investors, retail investors, they could care less about us, right? And just Stuart Alderati is just putting it out there, so you know, they don't care that FTX took all your money. They want to get back the rich people their money, the people that invested money in FTX. They could care less about you, and that's just the way the SEC works. They could care less about retail investors. They don't care about you. So stop protecting us, because you're not. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Hope you liked the video. Just remember, I'm not a financial advisor. Please do not take anything I write or say as financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. And thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.